First wars, Josephus, Jewish wars, book 1, paragraph 420 something. He built a fortress in the hills facing Arabia and called it Herodioun after himself, 7 miles from Jerusalem. He gave the name to an artificial hill, which means it's a man-made hill. On top of a natural hill, man-made hill. He encircled the top with round towers, filling the enclosed space with a palace so magnificent that in addition to the splendid appearance of the interior of the apartments, the outer walls, copings, and roof had wealth lavished on them at very high cost. He brought an unlimited supply of water from a distance and furnished the ascent with 200 steps of the whitest marble. Don't believe him? It's limestone. But okay. The mound was of considerable height, though entirely artificial. Round the base, he built other royal apartments to accommodate his free furniture and his friends, and that, in its completeness, the stronghold was a town, and its compactness, a palace. It's a town and a palace together. Now, after we got that, I'm in the last paragraph of Book 1 of Jewish Wars. Herod dies, and he's taken from Jericho in a long procession. The body was borne 24 miles to Herodioun, where by the late king's command it was buried. So ends the story of Herod. Here. That's what says Josephus Flavius. When this place was identified towards the end of the 19th century as apparently the site of Herodioun, archaeologists started thinking about where in the site was the tomb. And continued after 1967 in researching this place for many years. Part said maybe it's at the palace at the bottom, excavated the bottom, found no remnant of a tomb. And then they said maybe it's at the top, in the quarters up on top, excavated all the rooms and found no evidence of a tomb. And Professor Ehud Netzel worked here for 30 years on trying to find the tomb. And then he started excavating the area of this staircase, and then a little bit west of the staircase he found a few finds where no one knew there are any finds. So he went to the staircase and opened it a little bit, and they found this thing. This built here is actually the original construction of Herodioun, supporting the top of the hill. You can see everything above it is a filling of dirt and rocks. Okay, so actually supporting it. Said, okay, so actually this artificial hill really is half man-made, based on something before. And then they continue a little bit down and suddenly find dozens of smashed architectural fragments. Doric, Ionic, and even Corinthian. Okay, there's something important here. They continue down. What they find is this huge base you see in front of you. You can see the square base, a very large one, and scattered are dozens of broken fragments. The moment they find fragments of architectural decorations from 3 orders, it means the structure has 3 floors, because they will not be intertwined in the same floor. And they notice the Doric ones are of square shape. So they said, okay, here's a smaller model, much, much smaller than the one we saw in the entrance. The Doric is square. The Ionic is in round column. So apparently the Ionic part is a circle. And the Corinthian was very limited, and at the top of something that cone-shaped in, so here's the Corinthian. And what they actually understand is that the tomb itself was built out of 3 different floors, making it so big, you can't miss this thing halfway down the slope, looking towards Jerusalem. So if you're standing on the Mount of Olives, you can see this thing. It's about 22, 25 meters high. Now, one moment that is identified, they find many finds taking us to the tomb that was right here, including these things that are called urna, which in the Roman world was usually a place where people put the ashes of the dead and actually kept them. But here it's just a decoration. So what Herod said is, if I have a palace with so many decorations, there's just too much here. The tomb might be unseen because of the amount of structures and decorations. So he orders to cover up the hill. Now look behind you. You can see the pile of rubble and the dirt above it, which means they actually cover up half the hill, more than it was already covered up, to conceal everything except the garden and the tomb that they leave, which means the slopes had buildings and structures. Cover up and remove everything, so the only thing that will be visible is this massive tomb. And inside the ruins of the tomb, they find a puzzle. Hundreds of shattered pieces of stone that eventually form 3 sarcophagi. 1 sarcophagus, 3. 2 of them from white limestone, 1 from reddish limestone. So Ehud Netzel concludes that the one from the reddish limestone, that you can see right here with Ehud Netzel posing next to it, is apparently the one Herod was buried in. But who were buried in the other 2? So the truth is, no one has any idea. And that, of course, makes everything a little bit more difficult to understand. The 3 people buried here, apparently in the inner structure, forming this very, very fancy construction. So this is discovered in 2007 after many, many years of excavation and looking for it. And they actually understand that within Herod's days there are 2 phases. Phase 1, the building of the palace. Phase 2, removing part of the palace, straightening and lining down the slopes to build the new thing, which is the tomb, apparently already dedicated for him about 10 years before he died. Which means everything was ready. Everyone knew where and when and how the moment the procession comes here. How did Herod come here regularly? He was carried by the servants up the 200 stairs. So I'm sure you all want that to happen. I'm sorry we can't do that. We'll need to walk up and down. But the last thing we do here is, when was it smashed to pieces? Apparently the rebels themselves took over here 66 to 71 and actually smashed it to pieces. Because let's say the truth, if there was someone they didn't like that much, was the king from 70 years earlier, known as the King Herod, that made this one of his palaces and his personal burial site. So that's the site down below. Unfortunately, when they reorganized the site, we can't reach that place anymore. Until last year was actually accessible. You could really walk and touch those stones, and for some reason they decided that we can only overlook them from above. I'll just say that there's still more to do in the Herodioun excavations, and one of the things they might be checking in the future is in the same level further east, because maybe there's more. If there are 3 sarcophagi here, maybe there are more tomb sites of the family, yes or no, I don't know. Last thing we do right here before we get out of here, sorry, you can take a picture of course, is we've been 2 weeks ago at Absalom's pillar, right? And Nir there said that it's too similar to, in the design, they just look alike. Right. And therefore, Dr. Gabi Barkai offered that this Absalom's pillar is actually, this one, is actually Agrippa, Herod's grandson's tomb. If that's correct, it's really cool. Of course, we can't prove that it's true, but they just have so many similarities in their design. That one is slightly smaller, only 19 meters high, and not 20-something, but they're just so similar. So that was halfway down, or a little bit less than halfway down, and back up we go through the corridor, and now you can feel how it was to go up the stairs. Yes?
So why